guys, it's Lillian Lamore here with Tribe 3 Productions. I am here in the lovely town of Wilmette, Illinois, and I am at the Wilmette Theatre for the screening of the documentary Holy Ground. We're getting ready to go in and do some interviews of some of the people involved in this film. It's a great film to check out to learn about the history of the development of Chicago and the Catholic Church. And let's go, everybody! Hi there, it's Lillian here with Tribe 3 Productions. I am here at the Wilmette Theatre for the screening of Holy Ground, and I have here with me
Jesse Healy.
And what was your role in this project?
I did some of the sound post-production. I recorded some of the sound live on location, like at the Mitchell Museum. And once we were all in post and we had Brian Healy take over the audio, I started doing some of the PR to reach out to different parishes and stuff to get the word out about the movie coming out.
Okay, that's nice that you're able to, you have different skill sets that you can utilize. Now, I saw the film and I know the sound is different than the music, but were you involved in any of that? Because I really appreciated like the blending of the chorus singing for the church, and then also the Native American chants. Were you like involved in that process, or more just the nuts and bolts of sound?
More of the nuts and bolts and doing the actual like miking everyone up who was interviewed and stuff like that. I wasn't there for all of them. Some of those were also Brian Huey. He would make it there when I couldn't, and that a little further down the line and stuff. And then we both did some of the post-production. The music, I believe, he took charge of, or we had some licensing stuff to use already existing music. But most of what I did was just, making it different locations all sound at least similar in volume and everything else, because nothing's more jarring than,
Right.
different places. It all sounds different.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like sound is the most important thing on a film, because I make films, and I'll tell you, if you could have everything great with the film, and if the sound sounds unprofessional, it really is jarring for the viewer. So you are invaluable to a production.
Yeah, and that was I'm just glad to be able to that I learned some of the skills in school and everything, and that was something that everyone there also harped on. Like, listen, it is like the most important part. Like, music's a whole other aspect of it too. That's also with it, with the emotional side of everything. Exactly. But it's exactly like you said. Like, the picture, the cinematography can be beautiful, but if the sound is off, it immediately just disconnects the viewers from the entire project. So.
How did you get involved in this project? Did you hear about it on, a forum, or did you already know people involved?
Yeah, so I was working at St. Mary of the Woods with Michael Jolls, who started the project and everything. We were doing the live stream there, and he needed someone to help with the sound side of things, since he was like a master of the cameras and everything like that. So I got that job originally for doing the sound of the live stream, and as the movie took off and whatever, I was also the sound guy. I had also done all this sort of stuff in college and everything. So I just sort of used that knowledge. And when I watch the movie too, I get to see like where we started off, where we had like the first project of like the windows, like how bad, like there's a couple of little cameos. You see me like trying to hold the wires, and it's all clumsy and everything. But, as time goes on, it's like, we tucked the mic in right, so it's not just all over and stuff like that. So when I see it, I get to okay, there was some improvement I learned as I went along and everything. So that's always a nice thing to recognize. Makes a couple of the interviews look a little unprofessional because the wire's all out and whatever. But
did you, being a technical guy, do you have a thing of where you notice things? So you'll be watching a film or a TV show you like, and you start noticing like, oh, the sound on that, once you are in this industry, I feel like then you can't unsee it.
Right. I think that's definitely something that a lot of friends of mine that are in film, when they watch movies, when they're on the visual side of things, it's like, oh, I know how they did this. Like, they've got the whole encyclopedic knowledge of like how everything is shot, what kind of lens, and all this other stuff. With sound, I think I haven't gotten too far into that like rabbit hole or anything yet, but there are definitely instances where it's like you can hear like a subtle change in like how someone sounds in the same scene. It's like, oh, they had to ADR that. Little things like that was like, oh, it didn't sound good on set. They recorded it later.
Right.
They did it pretty good, like to the layman or whatever. It's all believable, but like, oh no, that sounded a little different. I know what you guys did, but it covered it up good and everything.
Right.
So
what did you have any with this film particular challenges that you had to overcome, or the film as a whole?
Yeah, definitely some of the people that we interviewed, just like based on the locations, like some outdoor shots right there on, I think it was Toohey Avenue. We had a couple of shots where it's just like, oh, we've got all the traffic and we're right here trying to figure out how to make, the person being interviewed a little more audible, and trying to do what we can to keep that sounding nice and like a human voice, and it's not super muffled or anything like that, while taking out as much traffic noise and things like that as possible. And then just, again, the different voices, making them all same volume, just in different scenes, different cuts from interview to interview, maintaining how loud they are between them to make sure it's not like, oh, this guy's just loud all of a sudden. It's all that simple stuff that no one really thinks about that you need to do when you're shooting on different locations. But once you got to put everything together, it's like, oh, no, this needs to be all figured out. So, we're not like, when this person comes on, everyone's ears are just blown out or anything like that. So.
Now, you said you were involved in the PR, and how did that evolve? Because there's the technical end, which requires a certain, skill set, mindset. And then there's the PR end, which also is a skill set, but it's different. It's not as technical.
Yeah, so that was just a matter of, I think we just looked at, obviously we reached out to any of the parishes who, like, we shot on their locations or did an interview there, or like we got like their parish as like a image in the B-roll because we brought it up during. So we reached out to those people, and like once the movie came along, it was just a matter of like recontacting them, like, hey, we shot on your location for this project. The project's coming out. We just want to let you guys know. And then based on the different premieres and stuff, it was like, you're in the city. The first premiere was out in the Glen. So it's like, hey, we know that's a bit of a drive, but it'll be on YouTube too. So just sort of getting the word out and making sure that it was accessible to everyone. So being a little like, just keeping that much of like a focus and being that sort of considerate and not just being like, hey, it's out in Wilmette, just make the drive. You're in downtown, it's whatever. It's an hour and a half to see an hour and a half movie.
Yeah,
so
accommodate everybody.
Right, 3 hours of transit for an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes of a movie, not really worth it to some people. So making sure they know that it'll be on YouTube. You can just do it from home or whatever. A little closer showings that are over here and everything too. We got the different event groups on Facebook. That wasn't me, the Facebook events, but like reaching out via email to the different parishes and stuff involved, and then other parishes that were around where we were doing the premieres as well, just to be like, hey, this is done with the Archdiocese. Like, we've got very popular Greg Sakowicz narrating the whole thing. So that's a name that people will recognize and everything too. So makes it a bit more approachable to people who are like really, up to date with Catholic entertainment.
Right. That's what, when I reviewed it, it's definitely, a film that if you're in the Catholic scene, there's certain things you're going to appreciate more, but it's not necessarily only for that audience. That's what I thought. I thought it was interesting, a lot of the history and the development of the city. And I found it to be very interesting as a documentary. Now, how long did it take, do you know, to make it, like to complete it?
So we did some shooting for this and another project starting probably about 2 years ago. And some of the shots and clips that we got were used for that first project that came out last year for the Marian Stained Glass Windows, which is like a little series of St. Mary of the Woods, one of our partner parishes, explaining like the history of the windows of the church and how they got there and like the artists behind them, things like that. And what the different stories of each window represent in the faith, which is a neat little thing. Check that out on YouTube. And then in those interviews, we also had some more historical things, and like the things that had more of that historical angle, we ended up using for this one because it told like the greater story of like the Chicago specific sort of history. Right. And when it comes to like just describing like, these windows talk about like this apparition, that's not so much about Chicago, but like once we had everything about Chief Sauganash and everything else, and Billy Caldwell being the same person. I have family that lives in Sauganash. My dad golfs at the Billy Caldwell golf course. I didn't know they're the same person. So like I had a lot of like working and editing and like being there for the interviews for all this too. I learned plenty along the way, and it was very interesting, eye-opening about, this place we live. It's like, oh, the place where you live doesn't have its own history. It's like the country as a whole. It's like, no, everywhere comes from somewhere, and it's nice to sort of find that out.
Yeah, I thought that was very enjoyable about it. So what is next for you? What do you have any other projects on the horizon that you're working on at this point?
Well, right now I'm working on a podcast that I've got with a couple of friends. We've been doing movie reviews, but we're thinking maybe going more of like a political angle with things, maybe doing some movies with those, but keeping it, and we're just figuring out what we're comfortable with putting out there. But the movie podcast we had was Reel to Reel. And then we found out that was the guy who made the I Like to Move It song from Madagascar, so we changed it to Get Me Out. So you should be able to find that podcast on either of those. I'm not sure what the name for this upcoming one's going to be yet. Just sort of working out those details and figuring out how we're going to record that. But
where can they find you online?
You can find the podcast on Spotify, on, Google Podcast doesn't exist anymore, or it's about to not exist anymore, but it'll be on YouTube Music as well. I believe the channel name is still Reel to Reel, REEL number 2 REAL. And if it's not that, it'll be Get Me Out, and just spelled regularly.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the interview. And this is Lily Lamore signing out.